differently abled persons. In fact, in our parlance, differently abled persons are also called persons with disability. So why there is a need to enable them. Now, I mean, this is kind of a very, very fundamental question, but then the entire, so to say, empowerment, of persons with disability comes from this basic facility, if I may use the word, enabling. Now, the enabler word in itself is a huge word, it has a great meaning, when we talk about enabler, we have to basically talk about things which will make them part of the inclusive society. And this inclusion will only come when we provide them the facilities, the technologies, and also the environment by which they are able to participate with rest of us. So the three words we always talk about is engage them, enable them, and empower them. So enabling is something which is a precursor to empower them. And when we say empower, it is not only economic empowerment, it is educational empowerment, social empowerment, and also economic, of course. Now, educational empowerment is one area where digital technology has a great role to play, even in social empowerment also. For running various Government of India welfare schemes, we do have to fall back on the technology. In fact, technology becomes such an intrinsic aspect of our functioning that it is very difficult to dissociate technology from our day-to-day life and also welfare schemes. The word inclusion, in fact, has a very wide kind of a ramification. When we say inclusion, then we also have to talk about the accessibility, because inclusion and accessibility are again hand in hand. Unless we provide an environment, whether it is built-in environment, whether it is transport system or ICT, information and communication technology, all these things help them to have this kind of inclusivity. So inclusion, inclusivity, and accessibility, these are words which are kind of closely linked with each other. Let me quickly take you through the history of this journey, Today we are talking about enabling, talking about empowerment, talking about inclusivity, accessibility, technology, etc. But then if we go back in the history, this entire concept came about 2.5 decades back, way back in 1992, when countries of Asia and Pacific region, they signed a proclamation for full participation and equality of persons with disability. It was in Beijing. That led to start or augment of the first decade of persons with disability from 93 to 2002. So 92 was kind of an important year in our sphere, where first time countries, they realized that persons with disabilities have to be taken, care. They have to be given their rights. And then the decades started, 93 to 2002. Thereafter, in India, we came up with a legislation for rights for persons with disability. It's popularly known as RPD Act of 1995. And that broadly spoke about three things. One, equal opportunities. Second, rights of persons with disability. And third, spoke about participation, full participation. And thereafter, after 95, sort of a legal framework was provided. And before that, state government and central governments, they were basically providing sort of relief, what we call affirmative actions they were taking, relief in the form of, say, job reservation, relief in the form of disability pension, etc. But it's in 1995 that first time we got a legal platform to kind of, fight for our rights, So 1995 was a watershed year for us. And this was followed by United Nations development in our sphere. And in 1996, when the UN Convention was adopted, India ratified the very next year in 2007. And we were one of among the first few countries to ratify this convention. So then again from 2007, we progressed further and came the what we call Incheon strategy. That was again in 2012, where for the first time, Asia Pacific countries, they said, make the rights real. Again, this is a huge, huge kind of a ideology or concept when we say rights are not only to be provided, but they have to be made real. And in that, again, each and every person with disability has to be empowered, so to say, in a manner that he's able to exercise his rights in a realistic manner. And after this Incheon strategy, we had a third consecutive decade, which started again in 2013. And currently we are in our third decade, which ends in 2022. So what I was trying to kind of point out was that this is a concept which is slowly evolving. And we have traveled a long way, but still we have to cover a long distance ahead of us. And in this, we find that digital technology has a very, very important role to play. In fact, I was discussing with our esteemed panelists also, and each one of them will be bringing their own perspective. And as you heard about their background, they come from a very, very kind of distinguished background, and they have their own experiences and contributions to share with all of us. So digital technology cannot be taken in isolation. Digital technology has to be taken as one of the enablers for our sector to grow further. And as I said, this is a concept which is constantly evolving. In fact, after our 1995 Act last year in 2016, we came up with another act. It's called Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016, where for the first time we said that this is kind of it's not a help we are providing to anybody. It's like basically they are asking for their rights. So from the welfare kind of schemes, we are shifting gradually to the right-based. And when it is right-based, then it's kind of a demand which cannot be ignored any further. You have to make way for their rights. You have to provide for, and whatever we are enjoying, whatever other persons are enjoying, they also have to be given that kind of opportunity. And that is what is all about the inclusive growth in the society. So in this context, the theme of the conference and also the selection of topics for individual speakers, I find is excellent. And each speaker will bring forth his or her experience to kind of, give it a kind of a complete rounding. And at the end of it, we'll see that how this technology is touching each and every aspect of functioning of persons with disability. With this, I will kind of request our first speaker, Professor Basu, to share his thoughts and throw some lights on the technology aspects which he's going to cover in his speech. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. May I have a pointer here? Where the pointer है? Yeah, do I have a pointer?
The guest speakers are having the cordless mic if they want to speak from their own seats, so they can speak from there itself. Thank you. He's asking for the pointer.
Well, I was told that there'll be a pointer, but digital technologies as such do not, I emphasize, digital technologies as such do not lead to accessibility. It is an idea that if everything becomes digital, things will be accessible. Is not always the case. It is, of course, if it be digital, then online material can propagate to a large number of people who were not getting access to good teachers. But obviously, in that case also, the case for the physically challenged and the differently able. Just making the things digital will not help them. If the things are digital and if we have the proper interfaces and support, then only it becomes accessible. So this part is very important on which I'd like to dwell upon. Next, please. So right now, the Indian scenario, these are the things that I thought of talking to you. The lack of indigenous technology. Yes, we are still lacking in indigenous technology. Often we have to import the devices and systems and tools. And automatically the question that comes up is the support and their affordability and their alignment to Indian social reality. Often the imported systems do not satisfy this criteria. Although I say that there is lack of indigenous technology, there are silver linings, there are several attempts being done. I'll be dwelling upon some of them. And at the end, I will be looking at some of the accessibility requirements that are to be met for online contents so that the people with physical disabilities can get access to that. Next, please. Next. So, this is known to all of you that what are the different types of disabilities, visual impairment, low vision, I'd like to add to that the last two bullets, last three bullets, that one is color blindness, which becomes very important in the case of online documents, cognitive disabilities, and most importantly, that is adding up to our population, that's the aged population. They are also becoming disabled in different ways. So, next please. Now, next. What I want to mean is that digital accessibility and inclusion, if you talk about that, then we should develop systems which are too much cyber here, I find. So people with disabilities and those without disabilities can access the digital content. Okay? And I'd like to add that working for such systems which are inclusive in the sense that they will also work for the people with disabilities does not only make a moral sense, but also makes a better business sense and of course legal sense. We have got in the 1995 bill passed, but unlike US, it is not that much enforced here in India as yet. But in US, for example, it's very strongly enforced, and MIT and Harvard were sued for their courses not being accessible. We are not in that scenario as yet. I hope with more awareness will come. Next, please. So here are some data. I just want to pass on to that. We have got more than 27 million. I think this lower bound, the actual reality is much more. Next, please. Next. Now, I'll just quickly dwell upon, I said that there are some silver linings as well. And so I'll dwell upon some of the efforts that have gone in India and some of the tools which are available in India. Next. Next. So I start with my own works initially. At IIT Kharagpur, what we have done is a Sparsha system, which is a system that can convert from any Indian language to Braille automatically, and that can be printed out on any Braille embosser. And that is being used by the government of West Bengal now for printing all the West Bengal board textbooks. Next. Next. IIT Delhi, please, previous one. IIT Delhi has added to this in a very novel way, where they have developed ways and means by which tactile graphics can also be made available to the blind people. So now the students can also have a feel of the geometric figures and the maps and everything. That's also available, and we are tied up, IIT Kharagpur and IIT Delhi, and we are jointly making these things available. Next, please. Here is a system developed at IIT Kharagpur, which is speech-enabled Indian language keyboard, where a person can type in Indian local language and can hear what he is typing. JAWS is available, of course, for English. Now it is available for Indian languages also, and we want that the students in the universities use such systems so that they can do away with the need of the writers, and the universities should add to the exam time so that they can submit their tests on by themselves without needing a writer. Anybody who is working in this area knows the plight that a disabled person faces for the writers. Next. So next please. Here I am trying to address the need of another segment of disability, that is those with cerebral palsy. Next. Next, please. Next. Go ahead. Now, the people with cerebral palsy are, because of their limitation in neuro control, cannot access the mouse and the keyboard. Next. Please, next. Next. So, in response to that, we have developed a number of access devices. As you can see, different types of switches. The top one on the left and the top one at the bottom are at IIT Kharagpur. Top one on the right is by IIT Madras, that's known as Aditi, and the one at the bottom right is sweepstakes, which enables any user to access any icon on the desktop using such switches. Please try to understand that these people cannot handle the mouse or the keyboard. Therefore, using these switches, and as this sweepstakes goes around, you can automatically get access to any particular icon. Next, please. Here is another system developed called Akash Bani, using which any speech impaired child can carry it on a tablet and can have the different messages spoken out. Suppose you carry it to a shop and you want 1 kilo of potato, and you can just press a particular icon and that will be spoken out. Now, this runs on any phone, can run on any tab, or smartphone or any tab. And for the neuromotor disorder, this is coupled with special access switches so that this can be wheelchair mount and they can also operate that. Next, please. Here is one ongoing project by our students where the people with neuromotor disabilities, orthopedic disabilities can access the edutainment tools including Facebook, web browsing, Facebook, email, and all those things can be made accessible here. I do not have the time to explain this, but just quickly I can just point out that here you understand that you cannot, unless you have control over mouse, you cannot go to a hyperlink and click that, right? So in that case, we have got ways and means here by which all the hyperlinks are parsed and made numbered, and you can just simply type using those access switches some particular number and you can navigate through the online contents. Next. So here are some tools developed at IIT Madras. You can see the motorized wheelchair, and our system that is on the right side is mounted on the wheelchair for some children. And these are also available in India at very low cost. Next, please. Now I'm coming to the conclusion. Now we are in an era where all of us are accessing online contents. Why will the people with disabilities be deprived from that? Now, in order to make the things accessible to them, there are several things that are needed. First of all the contents should be closed captioned. There should be facility of closed captioning. For the blind people, that is important for the hearing impaired. And please note that both MIT and Harvard were sued for not having their very well-known courses closed captioned. So that's a need. This is also known to all of us, but we often do not do that. Whenever we create some images on the web page, we should add alt text tags to that, so that a tool like Daisy Books or Daisy Readers, I'm sure Dipendra Manocha will be talking a lot on that. Now, these immediately become accessible when we write an alternate text with the images, which can be read out to the people who cannot see the images. Adoption of DAISY format, I'm skipping this because I'm sure this will be dwelt upon. Use of colors and contrast. I have consciously made these slides on a very high contrast thing because this is also needed for low vision people. We often do not do that. We go by jazzy colors and different things, but certain things need to be kept in mind. And use of colors. There are segments of people who are colorblind. Now, suppose in my online content, I put some information which is encoded as color. Red line means something, blue line means something. What happens to the people who are colorblind? There are tools by which you can check whether your web page conforms to the color blindness issue and all those. So therefore, if you use color, please add alternate texts to that. Now, the accessibility of the media players that we use. Until recently, YouTube was also not accessible. So all these things have to be made accessible, because we should be able to access a media player purely using the keyboard, using tab button, because I can't use the mouse or something. So that should go to the special icons like volume control, whatever, contrast and everything. That should be tab operable, and whenever we go over there, that should be spoken out. So there are several issues on that. I don't have time to dwell on that, but the bottom line is, a standard has been set in the world, that is WCAG 2.0, Web Content Accessibility Guideline 2.0. Everything has been very clearly laid out on that, and we should not accept any online content which does not adhere to this standard. Okay, next please. So where the shoe pinches, that may come in the discussion. From the academia, I am pained that it is not yet recognized as a R&D, research and education discipline. We do not have courses on assistive technology everywhere. Disjoint and unplanned efforts. It's a niche, low volume market, true. Hence, there is a lack of industrial interests. And I feel that the government should come up. It has to be done in a welfare mode. Lack of technology awareness among the good NGOs. There are several NGOs, but they are not aware of what is available and how to use them. And there must be in-house strength to dwell on that. Next. Yeah, so here is a possible model with which I dream of, could not realize that the government, there should be, AAC means augmentative alternative communication, R&D centers. Government should help them, the users should participate in that, and the NGOs, industries, there should be a self-sustaining model for that with the active participation of the government and the NGOs. I think that's all. Please go to the next. So the call of the day is linked for a consortium with due credit to contributors. In India, we often face the problem. I develop something, or Dipendra develops something, I use that and use that as a part of my tool, and I do not acknowledge Dipendra. That is something that hurts us, hurts Dipendra, and hurts the cause. That's why I have specifically put the point that with proper contributions being acknowledged and user NGOs, technology institutes, industry, and government support consortiums are needed. All these need to be converged. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Basu. This was quite an enlightening walkthrough. The available assistive technologies we have, and I found it is quite useful and interesting. Professor Basu, you actually covered some of the aspects, like, the mere presence of technology doesn't help unless it is made accessible, unless it is available to persons with disability. So there is, in fact, he emphasized on this aspect, and this is something which probably would be the takeaway from this discourse, that digital technology is available, but that has to be made available to our people, and that is where the challenge lies. So thank you so much, Professor Basu. I now invite our next speaker, Mr. Muhammad Asif. Would you?
Yes, ma'am. Can I speak from here?
Yeah, that's fine. So,
thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. So I'm not hearing it. Either you didn't have chai or tea or the nashta or breakfast. So let me try it once again. Good morning, everyone. Yes, there is the energy level. Ladies and gentlemen, today I represent the voice of those who cannot see. I represent the voice of those who cannot hear. I represent the voice of those who cannot move. I represent the voice of those who cannot speak. Today, I represent the voice of the world's largest minority group, which is persons with disability. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine the fact if you cannot close your eyes and trying to navigate the cyberspace. It would be an immense challenge. Imagine the fact that if you're not able to listen to the video because you are hearing impaired and trying to make sense out of that content. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to take a few moments and make you feel what's the challenges that each one of us, persons with disability, goes through in our day-to-day life. First of all, I'd like to start on a positive note. World is home to 1 billion people with disability. And the Indian census only says 2%, but the United Nations and the World Health Organization estimate that we are home to about 130 million citizens with disability. Well, to start out on an inclusive note, I was a part of the Aadhaar team, and thanks to R.S. Sarma sir, who is currently the TRI chairman, for inducting me for creating a social inclusion strategy for Aadhaar enrollment. And I remember I was traveling extensively, and I was traveling on the one city to another city. I was traveling about 20 days out of a month. And I was walking with my cane with an airport, and I was trying to board the flight for the city B. When I was pointed by the supervisor of the airport, that airline's manager, he said, "Are you blind?" I said, "Yes." "How do you intend to fly?" I said, "Same way as how I came about 2 days back." He said, "Nothing doing. It's against the law of Director General Civil Aviation to let blind passenger fly alone." I said, "How strange." I was part of the national initiative where I actually gave inputs when this policy was being formulated for the carriage of disability or persons with disability. He did not pay attention. I was made to wait, and he ordered his staff, let other passenger board and let this guy on a standby. I refused. Then at the end, he made me sign a bond. And then I was ultimately let on that flight. When I landed in the next city, I did my work, came home. Thanks to the inclusive cyberspace, I looked up the address of Director General Civil Aviation. And the resident's landline was mentioned there. I called up the resident's landline, and thankfully, I spoke to his Mrs. Shri Bharat Bhushan. She said, "Don't worry, send an email to my husband, make sure that you scan the documents which you signed, and then I'll make you speak to my husband next day." I did all that. Next day, I spoke to her husband, and I understand the next day, the CEO of that airlines was called to the office. They did the investigation, and they claimed that no, this person is trying to seek a compensation and fabricating the story. Well, Director Sir, Mr. Bharat Bhushan, he was very, very annoyed and said if he was fabricating, how come this scanned copy? Eventually, they found the truth, and thanks to the inclusive cyberspace, which actually empowered me to take up this complaint. Now, let me mention, as I am a consultant and I specialize in digital inclusion, and I travel for my assignments and other also for speaking engagements. Once, because of the inaccessible cyberspace, I was trying to book tickets through someone. So I needed to book a flight for 6 p.m. in the evening. That person understood me and it was booked for 6 a.m. So I called up my bosses, and my bosses were very considerate at PwC India. And actually I was put onto that evening flight, but as a penalty for being disabled, I had to pay that $150 extra, about 7,000. Now I'd like to quickly show you the video, what Professor Basu has made my job much easier, the things in action. Praveen from console, can we have the video one, please? I'm a blind PwC professional working for PwC India as a senior manager in the advisory practices. I lost my eyesight at the age of 16, but nevertheless, I became the first blind commerce graduate from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, first one to do an MBA HR, and was instrumental in creating reservation quota for the disabled across IIMs and IITs and all government-aided Indian universities and colleges. Today, I'd like to demonstrate the power of screen reader, which is an assistive technology. And I'm just using a normal laptop. And the only thing different, it's equipped with the screen readers. And I'd like to demonstrate the power and as well as the challenges. So
4:33 p.m. Alt tab, power of ordinary people. Alt tab, snapshot Muhammad Assistive. Snap, alt space, menu, system X, leaving menus, edit.
So now this actually, it's reading it out and it can be customized. So it's a Microsoft Word applications. And of course, now let me go back to the Internet Explorer. And
enter Internet Explorer.
And
page.
It works really beautifully.
Home, Google Finance, Google G. Enter, leaving menus, new tab page. Address and search using bin edit about :blank, Alt+D.
As I'm scheduled to deliver a session at Global Conference in Cyberspace. So I'm just...
Search edit. Enter, region search edit, GCCS 2017. GCCS 2017.
It tells me everything, and yes, it's speaking fast, but the voice can be customized. While this gets loaded, let me just show it to you how I work on the email.
Snapshot Muhammad Assistive, alt tab, global conference, alt tab, power of ordinary, alt tab, inbox dash outlook, data file dash outlook.
Okay, let me just send a quick mail.
Untitled dash message left, tab, TR underline Verma tab, TR underline tab, subject edit, Alt+U, PRESENTATION, present A, T at GCCS, GCCS 2017, tab, message edit, din, POSAIPLE, possible, enter.
Okay, so
inbox dash outlook.
I have sent an email, it reads out emails. Now I would like to highlight the challenges part of it. Like sometimes it has a visual capture, which is not possible. Then if I have to book a ticket, so sometimes the calendars, it can only be navigated through the mouse and not a keyboard. And that's a big challenge. Okay, now here I'm not able to put this in because it only allows the keyboard. So this is the big challenge that it has. It would be a frustrating experience to ask someone to help me out. This worked really well on the Excel sheet. So it tells you exactly which row you are on, which reference you are in, right? And I do not use a mouse, I use a keyboard. Where it is a challenge is it does not read the graphics or the components, but it...
Slide 4, Governor Award. Slide 5, National Award. National DSC underline.
Now I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a perfect example of universal access. An iPhone or high-end Android, which is made for everyone. People like us who cannot see can actually use it out of the self. And I'd just like to demonstrate, even though it's a touch thing. So wherever I put my finger on it, it says map, weather, iBook, clock,
App Store,
home, health.
people.
There are accessible apps and inaccessible. If you do not design with an access in mind, it will not be able to use by persons with disability. Let me quickly show you how. Okay, now I'd like to show you how I use the camera.
Flash.
And I'm just going to take a picture.
View one face. Take picture.
One face told me, and I have taken the picture. Now I'd like to demonstrate the sophisticated app which is designed for blind and visually impaired. It's called KNFV Reader. So how do I access a hard copy?
Health.
Let me just show you.
Home. USB reader.
So I have launched an app, and now I need to know whether my camera is accessing the entire document or not.
File explore setting camera tilde degrees.
The right edge, top edge, it's ready. So the picture should come quick.
Take picture.
Take picture. Now
Play.
it has entirely reading there, and I can save it. I can do whatever I please. So this is the power of technology, which makes things possible. For most of you, it makes things easy. For people like us, it makes things possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So yesterday I had an opportunity to meet the Prime Minister, sir, and he said one thing: ease of living. Today, I'm a live example of booking my own Uber app by using the technology. Today, I can do all those daily tasks, such as booking, such as conducting online transactions or meeting a friend. Matter of fact, even a low technology, today I was having difficulty in finding the right blazer to go with the right shirt. I just had a FaceTime with my wife, and she helped me with the help of the technology. So again, now this technology is not only limited to, because as I mentioned, I'm a voice of all cross disability. Now I'd like to show you what Professor Basu talked about. I wanted to show that in action. Can we have the video number 2, Parveen, please, from the council?
Enable India presents
Workplace Solutions for Persons with Severe Multiple Disabilities.
Avinash Sonat, intern, software developer, EMC, person with cerebral palsy. Avinash is lying on the bed. Avinash's mother places the computer in front of him and switches it on.
I got a mail from my manager. I have to check the feasibility of doing coding with speech recognition on the disk. Start.
Avinash uses voice commands to work on computer. All icons in the desktop are numbered. Avinash selects Microsoft Outlook.
Syllabus. 47. Okay. Mouse. 4.
Screen divided into 9 parts with numbers. Avinash selects grid number and mouse moves there.
Extract.
Avinash opens his zip file and starts coding.
I was able to do the test cases. I will now update my manager.
Gupta, Avinash's manager.
He just want a problem, not a solution, because he something say, okay, I figure it out the solution.
Naveen R, intern, associate business operations analyst, EMC, person who is deaf, low vision. Naveen works on computers using on-screen magnifier and high contrast black display. He is working on an Excel sheet. Mani, Naveen's manager.
But initially I faced some difficulties. Then afterwards, it's very easily to communicate with him. Through communicator, it's not a one-way communication.
Gauzia Nishat, intern, project coordinator, EMC. Person with no motor function in arms and legs is sitting on wheelchair.
In EMC, I'm a project coordinator. I create the presentations for the financial reports.
Gayatri Shenoy, Gauzia's manager.
And there was an instance last week where I gave her a report at 10:30 and she had to complete by 12 o'clock in the afternoon. She was so punctual about it, she was 8 minutes late. And she writes an email back to me saying that, ma'am, I have done it, but it's 8 minutes late.
Gauzia works on computer by voice commands.
Press up arrow.
She opens Outlook and reads email. She prepares graph in Excel and pastes graph in PowerPoint presentation.
2-8. Okay. Enter. Close that.
Pradeep Sinha, intern, delivery specialist, EMC, person who is deaf-blind. Pradeep is using refreshable braille display with screen reader to work on computer. Refreshable braille display converts monitor output to braille. He is chatting with friend on Facebook.
He uses a refreshable braille display to read and type SMS.
Kirti, Pradeep's manager.
So in terms of logistics, we are communicating via link, and he now has a soft token installed on his laptop so that he can log in.
Sign language interpreter communicating to Pradeep via touch and feel. Samir Tekwani, intern, patch release associate EMC, person with cerebral palsy.
I have learned how to make sales report.
Samir works with an enlarged screen and on-screen keyboard. He logs into EMC server using a key code. He uses dual monitor with enlarged on-screen keyboard for typing. He works on an Excel sheet and emails it using Microsoft Outlook. Mary, Samir's manager.
I noticed that he's a little slow when it comes to typing, and I had my doubts whether he will be able to do the task, but then he picked it up quite fast.
Manjunatha, TR, intern, project accountant, EMC, person with cerebral palsy. He works on computer using touch screen and on-screen keyboard with word prediction.
Okay, bye.
Pratap Ram, finance analyst, ANZ Bank, person with cerebral palsy. His body and hands shake when holding joystick and typing. He works on Excel using joystick as mouse, foot pedal, sticky keys, and on-screen keyboard with word prediction.
Deepa Narasimhan, Diversity and Inclusion Lead, Region Asia Pacific Japan, EMC. Person with no motor function in arms and legs, but with function in one finger.
So my solutions are, I use an on-screen keyboard. It's a word prediction software as well. So I use it to type. So, it's like a virtual keyboard on the desktop. And apart from that, I think I use the Dragon Natural Speaking, which, whenever I need to write my blogs, which are of lengthier text, it's voice to text conversion. So I use the Dragon Natural Speaking.
Brilliant. Can we have this video stop in the interest of time?
To answer my...
Brilliant. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just did. Like me, was only functions because the fact accessibility was built into the design of any products and services. I'm indeed excited of the fact that India is going digital. I'm indeed excited of the fact that we are going to have technology which will make our life easy. But what worries me is the most, if we do not include accessibility in the design phase, then it's going to be disaster. It's again going to exclude this 130 million people, which does not make business sense, social sense, and it will exclude this marginalized group. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my presentations, I'd like to share one incident because I belong to the land of Swami Vivekananda. He's a thought group. So one Swamiji was resting, and one of the disciple came to him and asked him, Swamiji, I have some bad news. Swamiji did not respond to him, and he said, Swamiji, one of my relatives is diagnosed with a disease and he's going to lose his eyesight. Swamiji again did not respond. And then in the second time, the loudest time possible, he said, Swamiji, some bad news. My relative is going to go blind. Swamiji smiled at him and said, you fool. He may be losing his eyesight, but he has not lost his inner vision. Ladies and gentlemen, ignite your inner vision to follow the principle of universal access design. Ladies and gentlemen, ignite your vision to be accessible because it makes business sense. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, each one of us in this room has possibility of being disabled. The first victims of the terrorist attack is persons with disability when they become outbreak. The first victim of the war results in the disability. So ladies and gentlemen, to end, I just like all of you to repeat what I am saying. I pledge my support and cooperation to
be the champion of accessibility and facilitate in inclusion of India and the world. Thank you so much. Dream and drive. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Asif Iqbal. That was lovely, wonderful, and the kind of real-life examples you gave in your videos, demonstrating that ease of living, ease of kind of doing anything, any work, for that matter, even ease of doing business, will come from technology, and all of us have to be part of it. And the pledge we have taken will, of course, take us forward in this direction. Thank you so much. Now I invite our next speaker, Ms. Ira, to take over.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the biggest thing that digital technologies have done is to actually remove the disability. And it's not just making your environment accessible, as everybody else has been talking. It's also the medical revolution, which is championed by the digital revolution. So we're looking at people who basically not become are not disabled anymore. People who function, who work, and who are equally capable as the rest of us. Just that digital technologies have shown us their capabilities, have allowed their capabilities to come out. And what everybody else also has shown in their presentation, and I would like to highlight this really poignantly, is that they've given birth to all the people with disability. They've actually given them something to produce. They've made them a part of the society which is contributing, which means that all the people who were considered as a burden, as someone who needed to be taken care of, are now actually not just taking care of themselves, but also doing it for the rest of the people around them. I'd particularly like to take the example of all of us who are in the civil services at least. Our job is to serve the society. Our job is to serve the, people around us. And that's mainly happened through us becoming empowered, us becoming enabled through the digital technologies. The simplest thing is that even clearing this exam, most of us as people with disabilities have movement issues. And there was a point when all your knowledge, all your education, all your study had to be either done at a coaching center or in a library. And if I take my own case, I wouldn't find it as easy to keep going to a library or keep going to a coaching center. But then I didn't need to. Digital technologies brought all the knowledge, all the information, everything I needed at my doorstep, at my home, at where I was, wherever that was. And I didn't need the world to support me anymore. I am now doing the job where I support other people. I meet almost 200-300 people a day and counsel more than I think 1,000 people online per month. And that's only because of digital technologies. So for me, and I'm sure for most of us with disabilities, it's actually empowered us like nothing before. It's put us in the mainstream. It's removed that stigma of being a person with disability who needed to be taken care of, not just by their family, but by those around us, and to be pitied. And now we are the ones who do it for the rest of the world. We are the ones who help those around us. We are the ones who stand up for those around us. And another thing is, the point of someone else taking care of you. Now, with digital technologies, with e-commerce, with everything being at your, like they've shown on this, just a click and you can do everything for yourself, which means your dependency on the world around you has almost been eliminated. You want to shop for your house, you want your basic groceries, you want your vegetables, it's all delivered at your doorstep. You want to get something repaired in your house, you can get someone to come do it at the click of a mouse. So for most of us with disabilities, it is work towards removing our disabilities. Digital revolution, and I know that it's not just today, it's in future as well. I don't think we'll be having people with disabilities. What we've done is given people an environment and made it easy for them to do all those tasks which the rest of the world was already doing. And once that is done, there is no need of a term called disability. There is no need of a special act or a special provision for anybody who has any kind of problems, who has any kind of movement restrictions or accessibility restrictions. So it was just, Some people thought about it, some people worked on this, and now with this huge revolution, like sir was mentioning, it wasn't just the digital technologies, it was actually even people working towards making it accessible, that all of this has happened. And those of us who are in this field, those of us who are with restrictions, we find them removed, we find ourselves to be a part of the mainstream, ourselves doing the same things as everybody else, and being just as capable, just as empowered, and not just taking care of ourselves, but also taking care of those around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Ira could be an ideal role model for everybody, not only for persons with disability, but for everybody, how she has